Hi everyone, my name is Katie and I work for How to Become the UK's leading career specialists and education experts. Welcome to my video entitled How to Pass Telephone Interviews. Now, during this video, I would advise that you jot down as many notes as you can because I've provided some real great tips that will help you to prepare for any telephone interview. As you work through the video, if you spot anything you like or find really useful information, quickly click the thumbs up button. And for other videos similar to this, don't forget to subscribe. You wouldn't want to miss anything, would you? Okay, so let's have a look at what this video entails. So the content of this video will include what a telephone interview is, why they are used, how to prepare for them, general tips and advice about telephone interviews, and finally, show some practice interview questions and talk you through how to answer them. So as you can see, I have numbered each of the different stages from 1 to 5. So in this video, you will find a star in the top right corner of the video, indicating which section you are on. So you can really focus on the key areas you wish to cover. Okay, so what is a telephone interview? So the first thing we're going to look at is what a telephone interview actually is. If we understand what a telephone interview is, then we will be able to understand what the person assessing you is looking for. So let's get straight into it. A telephone interview is a quick, effective way for a company to screen lots of candidates before actually meeting them face to face. As you can imagine, lots of people apply for the same job positions, and therefore a company needs to be able to sift through the candidates and find the most suitable individuals. From there, a company can then offer a face-to-face interview. So think of a telephone interview as the preliminary stage. So one of the main reasons an organisation will have a telephone interview is that they don't want to meet hundreds or scores of applicants face-to-face during the early stages of selection. If they do that, it can be extremely time-consuming and expensive. A telephone interview can last, say, 5 minutes. Sometimes they will go on from 40 minutes to an hour. But the great thing about them is that the assessor does not have to meet you until they are 100% certain that you meet the qualities required for the job role. So you need to treat the telephone interview with as much importance as you would a general face-to-face interview. So consider whether or not you match the job description and person specification. A telephone interview will not last as long as a face-to-face interview. Therefore, you have a limited amount of time to make yourself look good. For the interview, you should consider the following areas. So we have the job role, so your reasoning for applying and your suitability. The company, so what you know about the company, so you will need to demonstrate thorough research about the company as a whole, not just the job position. The requirements, so have a strong understanding of what is required and show that you meet the requirements for the job. Person specification, so this will be used in order to assess whether you have all of the necessary skills for the role. It determines whether or not you make a suitable candidate. Your experiences, so to be able to discuss your past experiences and how this relates with the job role you've applied for. So your reasons for applying, so throughout the interview you will be assessed on your overall enthusiasm and motivation for wanting the job. So what you have to offer, so your main skills and qualities. Your strengths, so knowing what you are good at and how this can be applied to the job role. And finally, why you think you are the right person for the job. So why should they pick you as opposed to somebody else that has applied? Okay, so the next question is, why are telephone interviews used? So the main reason for using telephone interviews during job selection processes is timing, for both the company and the applicant. So companies do not want to waste precious time meeting and greeting every applicant that applies to the job. This will be a waste of time for both them and the applicant. Telephone interviews allow companies to assess whether or not a person has the correct qualities and skills required for the job position. So an employer may decide to use someone else within their organisation, in fact a recruitment agency, to carry out the telephone interviews for them. So that means that people who pass the telephone interview are the best of the initial sift, and they are far more likely to meet the criteria the employer is looking for. So in harsh terms, a telephone interview is a sifting process. Because it's a sifting process, some candidates don't really like telephone interviews that seriously. So obviously you're going to take it seriously because you want to get to that all-important face-to-face interview. So nowadays there are many hundreds of applicants for every few jobs, and the competition is fierce. So therefore you need to be fully prepared and up for the challenge, and challenge for what the interview presents to you, okay? So how do you prepare for a telephone interview? So the telephone interview is a tool for the recruiter to assess whether you are a serious applicant and decide whether or not to take you further through the application process. The questions are far more likely to focus more on your general competencies and skills. Your aim is to try to show your enthusiasm and commitment in a short conversation. So the positive thing about phone interviews is that they are quicker and far more convenient for both you and the interviewer than arranging a preliminary meeting face to face. So if the job you've applied for relies on your personality or telephone skills as much as the qualifications and experience, then the recruiter will be particularly interested in how you come across on the telephone. So however, the downside of a phone interview is that it can be more difficult because neither person can see each other, so the usual visual clues are absent. So how to prepare? So my first tip to you is research and plan in advance. So of course you're going to feel nervous leading up to that all-important phone call. In addition to using a telephone interview as a sifting process, it can also be used when a candidate has to travel a long way and the employer doesn't want to put the candidate through the stress and hassle of a long journey unless they definitely have the skills required to carry out the job. So hopefully you're starting to learn that the telephone interview will be used to assess whether or not you have the qualities required to carry out the job role. So during a telephone interview, the employer will not really be able to assess your likability factor or whether or not you will fit into their team and organisation. However, a telephone interview is perfect for assessing whether or not you have the right skills, qualities and experiences for the job role. So the person specification and job description. So as you are aware, and I've mentioned the terms person specification and job description, I'm just going to give you a quick example of what I mean by this, as this will really go a long way in helping you to prepare for any interview. Okay, so when you apply for a job, you have to read through what is called a job description, as shown here. So basically this is outlining what the job is all about and what is required. So from there, the person specification will allow the company to filter what kind of person they are looking for. So let's take a look at this example. So I've broken this down for you to make it clearer. So first of all, we have the basic information about what the job role is. So this outlines who is advertising, the location, the job role, the salary and the date. Then we have the main duties. So this is summing up the key roles that the candidate will be required to undertake in their working day. Next we have the essential requirements. Now this is specifying what kind of person they are looking for. So do you meet these requirements? Okay, so remember, you need to find out as much information as you can about the company you've applied for. So having background knowledge about the company and the job role will really show that you've taken the time out to research, which is ultimately shows your commitment and enthusiasm to succeed. Okay, so finally we have a quick rundown of the working hours as shown here. So this includes the place of work and highlighting it's a position that wants to be filled as soon as possible. So when you read through your job description and person specification, you want to go through with a highlighter pen and highlight the key things that show up in the job description, okay? Because these will need to be assessed within the interview, okay? So guaranteed you will be focused on meeting all of these requirements. So I've highlighted a few in this just to give you some idea of what I'm talking about. Okay, so number 2. So practice your telephone manner. So when you have a date for your telephone interview, immediately place it in your diary. However many days you have to prepare for the interview, start preparing for it immediately, okay? So most people prepare the night before the telephone interview, which is not particularly good practice. So you have a lot of work to do, so the sooner you get started, the better. So you need to consider the following. So speak clearly, answer the phone yourself, use the interviewer's title, avoid ums and ahs, sound interested, confident and engaging, speak slowly, don't rush your response, and be professional. Okay, so tip 3, so be ready for the phone call. So you would know when to expect your phone call, so therefore there is absolutely no reason why you shouldn't be fully prepared to answer the phone yourself and not have a family member answer it for you. So find a quiet place and make sure there's no distractions, so i.e. other people, TV or anything could be deemed unprofessional. If you're using a mobile, make sure that it's fully charged. Make sure that you have no problems with hearing the other person, and more importantly, that the other person can hear you. So make sure you have your notes, your CV, the job description and person specification at hand. These will be referred to in the interview, and therefore it's important that you know exactly what to say. Have a glass of water at hand, so this will allow you to keep hydrated and make your speaking easier. Okay, so tip number 4 is asking questions. So just like a face-to-face interview, a telephone interview invites you to ask questions to the interviewer. So this is something that you should do. It's a great thing to ask questions. Not only does it show how enthusiastic you are, but also allows you to answer any concerns or queries you may have. So make a list of 5 to 8 questions that you can ask. That way, if one of the questions is answered during the interview, you still have other questions to ask. And finally, my final tip to you is to thank them for their time and to follow up. So when the interview is finished, you should say something along the lines of, I would just like to say thank you for taking the time out to speak to me, and I look forward to hearing from you. Take care. After the interview, make sure you follow up with an email or letter. So this email will just thank them once again and show how you appreciate their time and efforts. Keep it relevant, keep it snappy, and keep it professional. Okay, so some general advice, tips, and key things to remember. So I've given you a lot of information already, and hopefully you've taken some good points to apply to your telephone interviews. So the next thing I would like to provide you is some general advice and tips on things you should consider. So how are you going to answer the phone? So what is your tone of voice? Make sure you are enthusiastic and positive. Make sure you don't waffle on. Avoid using jargon. Do not swear or get angry or rude. If you're invited to use their first name, then do so. If not, use their title, i.e. Mr., Mrs., Doctor. Use the other person's name regularly throughout the interview. Don't use it all the time, but enough times to show that you're engaged and committed. Use the company name a few times. Avoid having distractions in the background. Don't multitask whilst on the phone. Don't munch and slurp whilst on the phone. And a great tip is to smile. So although they won't see this, it will change your attitude and tone of the interview. And finally, stay calm and focused. So remember, your goal is to get a face-to-face interview. So some practice interview questions and how to answer them. So as with any interview, there are typical interview questions that you can expect to hear during your interview, whether that's a telephone interview or face-to-face interview. So the advantage of having a telephone interview is that you can use the notes that you have for some sample responses and then tailor these to the questions that you're asked. So this means you don't have to try and remember everything you want to say. So here are some example interview questions. So can you tell me a little about yourself? Why have you applied for the job role? Can you tell me what you know about the company? How would you summarize your main skills? What are your reasons for leaving your current job? Where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What can you bring to the job role that other candidates might not? What qualities are important in the job role you've applied for? Is there anything you would like to ask me? Okay, so let's break these questions down just to give you some understanding of how to answer them. Okay, so can you tell me a little about yourself? So this is simply a getting to know you question. So of course the interviewer doesn't want to know what your favourite colour is or what movies you like. Instead they want to know what kind of personality you have and whether or not this is fitting with the job role you've applied for. So keep it professional, short and relevant. So why have you applied for the job role? So you need to demonstrate that you have strong reasoning for applying for the job role. So what skills and knowledge do you have that you can apply to the job role? So what has interested you about the job role? So why does it suit you? Try to include some keywords. So use some keywords from the job description and person specification. So this will show that you've paid attention to what is important to the job position you've applied for. So can you tell me what you know about the company? So this question requires you to have have undertaken some previous research. So before the interview, make sure you find out as much as you can about the company you've applied to. So what do they do? What are their aims and objectives? Do they have a motive? Have they done anything in particular that you like? Have they won awards? So how would you summarise your main skills? So this is the time to make yourself shine. So what skills do you possess that the interviewer is looking for? The skills and requirements that are listed on the person specification is a great place to start. Obviously, these are the skills that the interviewer is interested in most, so therefore you need to demonstrate that you have these skills. You need to be prepared to back up your skills with past experiences or where you have used those skills before. So what are your reasons for leaving your current job? So although you should provide an honest answer, you should never speak badly about past employers. Even if you did not get on with people, you should not state this as your reason for leaving. Do you want a new challenge? Was you not being pushed out of your comfort zone? Did you have different ideas in regards to where you wanted to be? So they're all questions that you could consider when answering the question of why you wanted to leave your last job. So where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? So this question requires you to reflect on your future aspirations. Of course, answering the question by showing how much you can see yourself working for their company will get you bonus points. So the interviewer is obviously not going to hire you if they don't think you're going to stick around. So when answering this question, try to avoid being too ambitious. You want an answer along the lines of, I hope to progress my career here and hopefully work my way up to a role with more career challenges and responsibilities. So what are your strengths? So again, relate back to the person's specification. What strengths do you have that the company will benefit from? What strengths do you have that would make you excel in the job role? And on the flip, so what are your weaknesses? So this is not a trick question. You need to come up with an answer that shows that you're aware of one of your weaknesses. However, you should try to avoid an answer that would jeopardize your chances of securing the job. So this doesn't mean you have to lie. For example, you could say that you're not a good public speaker, but what you can do is show that you are working on improving this by engaging in more public debates and getting involved actively. So what can you bring to the job role that others might not? So this is a question which is ultimately asking why the interviewer should employ you as opposed to someone else. So you need to make sure that you provide key qualities and examples which emphasize your strongest points. What qualities are important to the job role? So this question requires you to have read through the job description and person specification and to have read that thoroughly. So without reading the above, you would have no idea what qualities are important. Therefore, you need to include the keywords listed on the job description and person specification. Do you have any questions for me? So this is your chance to ask any questions you have about the job role you've applied for. So typical questions that you can ask include, what opportunities are there for progressing? Is there any training I will be required to undertake? If I were to be successful, when would I be required to start? When can I hear back from you regarding whether or not I have been successful? Under no circumstance should you ask about the following. So any questions relating to salary, how many days you get off a year. So you're asking about holidays already before you've even started doesn't exactly give the best first impression. What other jobs are available here? So if you're more interested in a higher position, they know you're not going to stick around in the position you've applied for. Questions about other employees. So this is a no-go. So if you found someone attractive when you walked through the door, make sure you don't ask about other employers. So questions that show that you are already not happy with something, i.e. the types of computers they use, the heat, noise, asking for an office window, etc. Because this just shows that you are quite demanding, okay? And this is not professional. That's it, everyone. I hope this video has provided you with some great tips and advice on how to prepare for a telephone interview. If you would like more career videos, don't forget to subscribe to be kept up to date with my career in education videos. Hit the like button if you found this video useful, and please feel free to leave me a comment and feedback. I would love to hear how well you're getting on with your preparation and what tips you have for passing telephone interviews. Thanks for watching, everyone. Stay tuned for more of my upcoming videos. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon.